Real ID. Starting May 7, 2025, every U.S. citizen will need Real ID to fly domestically. Starting May 7, 2025, every U.S. citizen who is 18 years and older will need a Real ID or approved alternative to fly domestically. If you don't have one, you'll be denied entry at TSA checkpoints. Air travelers. Beginning on May 7, 2025, travelers will need a Real ID-compliant license or another federally approved identification such as a passport to board domestic flights. Federal facility visitors, access to secure federal buildings, military bases, and nuclear power plants will require Real ID-compliant identification. Individuals seeking certain federal services. Some federal services may require Real ID verification. Star symbol. It features a star symbol on the front to indicate compliance. The Real ID is a more secure, federally standardized driver's license or identification card. The transition to Real ID cards started in 2005.
After 9/11, the Congress passed the Real ID law.
When the 9/11 Commission suggested that the federal government set standards for the issuance of sources of identification, such as driver's licenses and identification cards. The idea is to ensure that all U.S. driver's licenses meet the same security standard, and to prohibit federal agencies from accepting non-compliant driver's licenses and identification cards for things like air travel and entering federal facilities. If you have gotten a new driver's license or identification card since 2005, you likely have Real ID. The compliant identification cards are being issued by all 50 U.S. states, as well as Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. How do I get a Real ID? Visit your state's driver's licensing agency website to find out exactly what documentation is required to obtain a Real ID. At a minimum, you must provide documentation showing full legal name, date of birth, social security number, 2 proofs of address of principal residence, lawful status. States may impose additional requirements, so check with your state's driver's licensing agency website before visiting them in person for additional guidance and assistance. TSA does not require children under 18 to provide identification when traveling with a companion within the United States. The companion will need acceptable identification. Travelers who do not present a Real ID-compliant license or acceptable alternative beginning May 7, 2025 will not be permitted through the security checkpoint. Real ID cards cannot be used for border crossings into Canada, Mexico, or other international travel. Real ID cards cannot be used for international sea cruise travel. It features a star symbol on the front to indicate compliance. If you are traveling internationally, you will still need your passport. If you are traveling domestically, you will only need one valid form of identification, either your Real ID or another acceptable alternative such as a passport.